Good morning, students. Today we are going to begin with our new chapter, first chapter, Fundamental Unit of Life. Then in this chapter we are going to discuss about what is cell, cell theory, types of organisms, types of cells, cell organelles, then important definitions coming in this chapter. Okay. So what is a cell? Already you know, you have studied in lower classes or in 8th class you have studied what is a cell. What is a cell? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Basic structural and functional unit of life. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Okay. And it was first discovered by Robert Hooke when in 1665. In 1665, Robert Hooke discovered the cell with the help of what? Microscope. With the help of microscope. Okay. And Leeuwenhoek, another one scientist, he discovered the living cells in pond water with the help of improved microscope. So, first the cell was discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. But later another one scientist named Leeuwenhoek discovered cells in pond water, living cells in pond water using some improved microscopes. Okay. Then Robert Brown is another scientist who discovered nucleus in the cell. So these three things you have to remember. Three scientists, name of three scientists. Robert Hooke discovered cell. Leeuwenhoek discovered cells in pond water, living cells in pond water. Then Robert Brown discovered nucleus in the cell. Okay, so what is a cell? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Okay. Now, we discuss the next point, cell theory. Cell theory was proposed by two scientists, Sleeden and Swan. Sleeden and Swan, two scientists proposed this theory, cell theory. This theory states that all living organisms are composed of cells, made up of cells. All living organisms, minute or medium or large sized organisms or very big animals, plants, everything, living beings made up of cells. Then second point, then cell is the basic unit of life. Cell is the basic, in each and every organism, cell is the basic unit of life. Then third point is then the new cells are formed from the pre-existing cells. We know that one cell divides into two. Two cells divides into four. So multiplying in number. So this multiplication takes place by the division of cell. So here from the pre-existing cell or from the older cells, the new cells are formed. So cell theory states that all the living organisms are composed of cells. Cell is the basic unit of life and the new cells are formed from pre-existing cells. Okay. Now we discuss on types of organisms. On the basis of number of cells, the organisms are classified into two types. Unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. You know, unicellular organisms means the organisms with a single cell. Means the organism itself, it's a single cell. It does not have any other particular cells or organs for performing any function. So in a single cell itself, what happens? In a single cell itself, all the functions takes place, means respiration, then nutrition, digestion, excretion, all these functions takes place in a single cell itself, and such organisms are called unicellular organisms. Example, you know, amoeba is an example. Then bacteria is an example for such unicellular organisms. But the other one, organisms that are having more than one cell, they are called multicellular organisms. Their body is composed of more than one cell, so that they can perform many functions by using those cells or particular tissues they have. Otherwise, they have a particular organs or organ system to perform many activities. So, such organisms are called what? Multicellular organisms. Example, animals, plants, okay, then birds. All those organisms coming under this category, multicellular organisms. So, unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. On the basis of nuclear membrane, which is present or absent, the cells are classified into two: prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. This also, prokaryotic cells do not have a nuclear membrane. What is nuclear membrane? Nuclear membrane is the covering of nucleus. A membrane is covered on the surface of nucleus. But in prokaryotic cells, they have a nucleus. They have a nucleus, but nucleus is not covered with a nuclear membrane, means nuclear membrane is absent. But in eukaryotic cells, what? The nucleus is covered with a membrane, means nuclear membrane is present. So, prokaryotic cells means cells with a nuclear membrane. So, prokaryotic cells means, prokaryotic cells are the cells do not have nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane is absent. Eukaryotic cells means they are the cells having a nuclear membrane, right? Then examples for prokaryotic cells, bacteria is an example for prokaryotic cell. Then example for eukaryotic cell. Examples for eukaryotic cell is plant cell, animal cell. They are examples for eukaryotic cells. They have a nuclear membrane in them. Okay. These are the general things about cell. So here we discussed what is a cell, who discovered cell. Then we discussed who discovered nucleus, who discovered cells in pond water, living cells in pond water. Then we discussed cell theory proposed by Sladen and Swan, what cell theory states. Then next we discussed on the basis of number of cells, the organisms are classified into unicellular and multicellular organisms. After that, we discussed on the basis of presence or absence of nuclear membrane, the cells are classified into two. They are prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells and their examples. Right. Now we come to the next point: structural organization of a cell. Structural organization of a cell. Here, in almost all the cells, they have some special components in them. In almost all the cells, they have special components. Generally, we can see. Such special components are plasma membrane, then cytoplasm, nucleus. What are they? Cytoplasm, plasma membrane and nucleus. These three are the general components present in the cell. In almost all the cells we can find these three components, right? So, all the cells that takes place inside the cell or interactions of the cell with the outer environment possible with the help of these components. So, suppose in each and every cell reactions, chemical activities takes place. There will be interaction takes place between the inner region of the cell and the outer region of the cell, outer environment. So all these things are possible with the help of what these components means, mainly what cytoplasm, plasma membrane and nucleus. Okay. So first we are going to discuss on plasma membrane. You know about it because you have studied about plasma membrane in 8th class. Now we will discuss. Cell membrane or plasma membrane is the outermost covering of the cell, and it separates the cell contents from external environment, means like a covering. Okay, suppose it is flexible, means not hard, it is flexible, and it is made up of organic molecules. This outermost covering, then it separates the cell contents from the external medium, then it is flexible and it is made up of organic molecules. All these points you should note down. Now one more thing, this cell membrane or plasma membrane, it permits the exit and entry of some selected materials, and it will not allow all the materials to go out or to enter in. So here, this plasma membrane or cell membrane, it permits only the selected materials to go out or to enter. So then this plasma membrane is also known as selectively permeable membrane. So once again, it is the outermost covering of the cell. Okay, cell membrane. Cell membrane separates the cell contents from the external medium. Third, it is flexible. Fourth, it is made up of organic molecules. It allows or permits only the selected materials to go out or to enter. So then this plasma membrane or cell membrane is also known as selectively permeable membrane. And I told you, this cell membrane or plasma membrane permits the materials to go out or to come in. So this happens because of some processes, mainly two processes, diffusion and osmosis. So here we are going to discuss what is diffusion, what is osmosis. I told you the materials are exchanged from the inner region to outer region, or from outer region to inner region of the cell. This takes place by two processes. One is osmosis, second one is diffusion. Then we will see what is diffusion. Diffusion means it is a spontaneous movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. Just moving materials or substances from a highly concentrated region to a lower concentrated region. Suppose inside the cell, some substances are highly concentrated, the amount is very high. Then what happens, from this inner region, that those substances will move out, because in the outer region the concentration of those materials are very less. So that from a higher level of or higher region of concentration, what happens, the materials or substances move to the lower region, means lower concentrated region. Such a process is known as diffusion. The spontaneous movement of substances from a higher concentrated region to lower concentrated region, it is known as diffusion. Then we will see what is osmosis. Osmosis means diffusion and osmosis having some similarities. Here osmosis is the spontaneous movement of substances from highly concentrated region to lower concentrated region as diffusion. But the osmosis takes place through what? Semi-permeable membrane. It means that if the osmosis takes place, the materials will move through semi-permeable membrane. As a result, what happens? Not all the materials, only the selected materials will be moving. Right. So such a process is known as osmosis. So diffusion is the spontaneous movement of substances from highly concentrated region to lower concentrated region. Then osmosis means it is also the spontaneous movement of materials from highly concentrated region to lower concentrated region through semi-permeable membrane. Right. So now we will discuss what are the differences between this osmosis and diffusion. Diffusion and osmosis. Let us see. Diffusion takes place in any medium. It does not require any medium in water or in gaseous medium or in solid medium. It takes place just moving the materials from the highly concentrated region to lower concentrated region. So, in case of osmosis, it takes place only in liquid medium. Osmosis takes place only in liquid medium, but diffusion takes place in any medium. Second point, diffusion does not require energy. Require energy, but less energy. It requires less energy. Diffusion is a simple process. It doesn't need much energy. So, less energy is required here. But in case of osmosis, it needs what? Energy. Energy is consumed. So, that is another one difference. First one, diffusion means what? Takes place in any medium. But in osmosis, it takes place in liquid medium only. Then diffusion, it needs less energy. But here osmosis, it needs more energy. Then diffusion does not require semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane is not required here. But in osmosis, one semi-permeable membrane is required. So these are the differences. Please note down what is diffusion, what is osmosis, and what are the differences between osmosis and diffusion. Okay. So that is about plasma membrane or a cell membrane. Now we come to the next one, cytoplasm. What is called cytoplasm? Cytoplasm is the fluid content or inside the plasma membrane, means inside there is a fluid content in this cell. This fluid content is known as what? Cytoplasm. And it contains many specialized organelles. Cell organelles are present. I told you a cell has many contents in them. These contents are called cell organelles. These cell organelles are present inside this fluid content, and this fluid content is known as what? Cytoplasm. Then what is the function of the cytoplasm? It helps in exchanging materials. As it is a liquid medium, semi-fluid or fluid medium, the exchange of materials takes place with the help of this. So it helps the exchange of materials. Then it acts as a storage of some vital chemicals, some important chemicals like amino acids or glucose, etc. So in the cell, some chemical substances are there which are very important. These important chemical substances are present in this cytoplasm. Which kind of chemicals? Like amino acids or glucose. Then cytoplasm is the site of metabolic pathway. Many metabolic activities takes place in the cytoplasm. These are the important points about cytoplasm. Now we come to the next point, nucleus. It's an important one. Nucleus is known as the brain of the cell. Brain of the cell. Why? Because nucleus controls all the activities in the cell. Each and every actions, chemical activities, or each and every cell organelle is controlled by what? Nucleus. Right. So it controls all the activities in the cell, and this nucleus, in most of the cases, the nucleus is present in the middle of the cell. It's a spherical type structure like a ball. Suppose we take a box and fixing a ball in the middle, then we can see that like a spherical structure, it is at the center. So the same way, this nucleus is like a spherical structure which is present in almost all the cells. It is present in the middle. So this spherical structure is known as what? Nucleus. And this spherical structure, nucleus, is covered by double-layered membrane which is known as nuclear membrane. Before I told you what is nuclear membrane. Nucleus is covered with a membrane, and this covered membrane is known as what? Nuclear membrane. Before I told you about prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nuclear membrane, means their nucleus is not covered with a membrane. But in eukaryotic cells, they have a nucleus, and those nucleus are covered with a membrane. Nuclear membrane is present. Okay. So here a nucleus, nucleus which is covered with a double layered membrane, and this membrane is known as a nuclear membrane. And inside the nucleus, there are thread-like structures. In this diagram you can see inside the nucleus, then nucleus, there are some thread-like green colored structures we can see. These thread-like structures are called chromosomes. Those thread-like structures are called chromosomes, and these chromosomes actually contain DNA. What is the meaning of DNA? Deoxy ribonucleic acid, which is very important. So in each and every cell there is nucleus, and this nucleus contains many thread-like structures. Those thread-like structures are called chromosomes, and these chromosomes carry what? DNA. What is DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Then what is the function of DNA? DNA carries the informations from one generation to next generation. That you will study in later in higher classes. How? DNA carries the information from parents to the next generation. That is the main function of what? DNA. So in each and every cell, inside the nucleus, there are chromosomes. All those chromosomes carry what? This DNA, and DNA carries what? Informations. So informations will be passed from one generation to next generation. Suppose if there are pieces of DNA, these segments of DNA, then segments of DNA are called genes. Segments of DNA are called genes. So I told you what is nucleus, what is the function of nucleus, what is it covered with. Then we discussed what are the contents inside the nucleus. There are thread-like structures called chromosomes. Chromosomes carry DNA. DNA carries the informations, and the cut pieces or segments of DNA called genes. Okay. In some cases, mainly in unicellular organisms like bacteria, the nuclear region is not well defined, not clear. In bacteria and all, the nuclear region is not clear, not well defined. In such cases, there will be some contents called nucleic acid. This nucleic acid, undefined region with nucleic acid we can see. Undefined region with nucleic acid, not the nucleus, not the real nucleus. Instead of nucleus, they may have a region of with a region with nucleic acid. Such undefined structure is known as nucleoid. Okay, these all are very important. Next, cell wall. Third point, cell wall. What is cell wall? Cell wall is the outer hard covering of the cell, or it is the boundary of the cell, because it protects the cell from external injuries, means it gives mechanical support or strength to the cells, mechanical strength, support to the cell. So, and this cell wall is made up of cellulose, an organic material called cellulose. And cellulose provides structural strength, so that cell wall can provide a mechanical support to the cell, and it permits some organisms to withstand without bursting, means like a fungus or bacterial cells. We know that their existence is based on or depending on this cell wall, because if there is no cell wall, what may happen? It may burst out. All the cell contents may come out of the cell. So such bursting can be prevented because of this cell wall. So many things we discussed today. What is a cell? Who discovered a cell? Then who discovered nucleus? Then we discussed what is cell theory. Who proposed cell theory? what are the two types of cells, eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Then we discussed what are the two types of organisms. On the basis of number of cells, what are the two types of organisms like unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Then we discussed about some general components in the cell. In each and every cell or in almost all the cells there are some general contents. Components are there. These components are what are they? Like cytoplasm, then plasma membrane, then cell wall and nucleus. Cell wall, then nucleus. So here we discussed about the plasma membrane, we discussed about cytoplasm, we discussed about nucleus. In the nucleus there are thread-like structures called chromosomes. Chromosomes carrying what? DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. The DNA carries the information from one generation to next generation. The cut segments of DNA are called genes. So, nucleus, we discussed, it has an important role in controlling all the activities in the cell. Then in case of some organisms, they may not have a well-defined nucleus. They may have a region with nucleic acid. Then such a structure is known as what? Nucleoid. Cell wall is the outer covering, hard covering of the cell, boundary of the cell. It gives strength, it gives support to the cell, it protects the cell from bursting. Then it is made up of, means cell wall is made up of cellulose. So all these things you have to note down in your notebook. So many questions I have told you. You have to write answers for all these questions from the beginning. Take your notebook and write all those questions and answers. After completing your notes, you have to take a photo of that and send to me today itself. Today itself I want all those notes, completed notes till the topic cell wall. Okay, not only writing, you have to study well. Don't keep it for next day. Complete your writing work and study well. Okay, so next day we will meet with more points about the cell. Till then, bye. Thank you. Have a nice day.